You gotta love these purple martins. But really, it's not a really good morning this morning. Last night we had a big system move through. High winds, heavy rains, and as you can tell by the martins' activities right now, they're nesting right now. They've been on the ground picking up grass and straw over the last few days, and so they're building their nests, and you can see they're very, very active. But disaster struck with that weather system that came through, and look at this. One of the whole poles is on the ground this morning. So this morning, I'm gonna help Brother Brian. I got plenty to do in the yard, but I'm gonna help the monk, and we're gonna get this thing up and repaired. So what happened was they didn't put concrete in the bottom of this. The pole rotted out, and that whole pole came down. But hopefully we're not going to find too much bad stuff in those boxes. Get this pole up quick enough, and the birds will get back to doing what they're doing right now. Building nests and making more baby martins. As soon as I finish this job, then it's on to my next job. That's what the video is really all about. How about that? Just like one of our cutouts, 2 hours later, it's up and standing, and check this out. You got the martins already going back to it. Now that this little project's over, let me get started on what I really wanted to do today.
Hello, Mr. Ed here. Today is April 24th, 2021. I'm in one of the Abbey Honey buildings, getting ready to start the whole process of putting wax on our plastic foundations of our frames. And you can see behind me, oh yeah, that's part of my shipment of 1,000 frames that I bought from Acorn bees. And in my opinion, these guys have got the best deal on the market. Now, they don't give me anything for doing this. I've been using their product now for, this is the 3rd year that I've been using it, and it is just a great product and a really great price. Let me show you why, some of the reasons why I like these frames so much. So I'm gonna get one of these frames out of the box. Now, these frames, the first thing about these frames, they're heavy coated with wax. That's the first thing. So, one, you can feel the wax that's on the frames, and then even you can start even actually seeing some of the wax, heavier wax on parts of it as well. So that's the first thing. But the construction of these frames is just absolutely great. Part of the problem that I had before when I was using other frames, when I'd try to lift the frames up, these top bars would separate from these side bars. And it's because the bars were only pinned from the top. Well, not only these, they're not pinned, they're stapled from the top, and then they're also stapled from the underneath. So they go top and bottom. Then on the bottom of the frame, not only are they pinned all the way through the frame like that, but they're also pinned on the bottom. And then on top of that, just to make sure they don't go anywhere, they're all glued. These are great frames, and the price, you can't beat the price. Even when you pay the shipping, it's still better than the competitors. Now, I ordered 1,000 frames, so yeah, I do get a little bit break on the price, but it's still a wonderful deal. This is a great product, and I highly recommend it. Now, even though I get these things heavy coated, I'm kind of like excessive, and so I'm still gonna dip my foundations with my wax, because I really like to have my bees draw that comb out really fast, and by doing that, it does it. However, the first year I got these things, I didn't have wax, and I dropped these frames in my box, and they drew it out just with what the wax was on the foundation. So it does work. These are great. It's a great product, guys. It's a great product. If you are interested in getting in touch with Acorn Bees, simply go to I recommend going to their website. You can call them on the phone, but it's probably better just to go to their website, which is www.acornbees.com, and I'll put that link in the description as well, and place your order there. You won't be sorry. What I'm going to talk about on this video is my way of thinking on how this whole process of getting bees to make honey for me. I start the process of getting honey way back in January. When in January I start to grow our bees. Here in Louisiana, bees develop pretty fast and they start pretty early as well. Come November, our queen has basically stopped laying at that point. So she stops laying around November, but once middle January comes, she's already starting to lay again, because in the middle of January, we're already getting trees that are blooming, primarily our red maple, our swamp maple, and our willow. And even in January, our bees are flying. Well, our bees fly pretty much all year round because our temperature is so moderate. I mean, we might get 2 weeks of weather that might be below 30. It's just very, very moderate here, which is one reason why I like living in Louisiana, because I do not like cold weather. So our bees start early, and in January I do my rotations, and that process of rotations is simply to get our bees, which have moved up into our second super, to get them down to the bottom, so that natural inclination of bees to move up, I'm giving them that opportunity to do that. So that's the first thing I do in January. Then come end of February, I'm already looking into my boxes to see if I've got swarm cells in there. And this year it didn't work out so good. I didn't have got swarm cells until almost the middle of March, due to this really freak weather that we got in late part of February. But normally towards the end of February, I'm looking for swarm cells, and that's what I use to make my splits. And I did the series of using swarm cells, emergency cells, in past videos. I'll include a link to that as well in my description if you're interested in seeing that part. Because I know for a lot of people up north, you all are just starting to come into your springtime, and so this information would kind of be pertinent for you. But for me, I mean, I'm already past it. I'm thinking about the honey, and that's what I'm doing right now, getting ready for honey. All of my boxes, which I split, are now have 2 deep supers on them, because I run all deep supers. I run 2 brood chambers of deep supers, and even my honey super is a deep super. The reason I do that is because I don't use an excluder, and if the queen should get up into that 3rd box and start laying, I can get down into the 2nd box, pull frames of honey out of that, and just flip-flop the frames of brood and honey, and it works out for me. That's just my way of doing it. A lot of people, and because it's so heavy, they don't like that method, but for me, that's how I do it. I want to show you the wax that I have to work with. Now, I made a video on me rendering this wax. I'll include it in the description of this video, but this is a lot of wax. When I first did it, it's close to about 180 pounds of wax, and I'll probably be using pretty much all of this to put the wax on my plastic foundation. Let's get started dropping some of these bricks of wax and bringing up our water level about right there. I think we can add one more brick. What the heck, let's add another one. Water's warming up. We'll cover this and check back into it in a little bit. What I'm going to do now is, going to get over into the area that we store our boxes and our frames and all that stuff. And I'm going to show you what I'm doing over there, what's going on over there at that part. So here we are in the peacock pen, and the configuration of our boxes is totally different from what you had seen in here previously when I had our boxes stacked up all in line, allowing the daylight to come through it. Now before I explain what's going on with the configuration of boxes at this time, I want to delve a little bit more into my reasoning and understanding of honey and how that whole process works for me. And from my understanding of it, the window of opportunity to get honey, at least a surplus of honey, is very, very small. Very small, just a matter of weeks, 6 to 8 weeks. And in that 6 to 8 week time frame, you have to have everything already set up. And one of the key parts to having things all set up is, one, having the number of bees in the box to produce and make the honey, and two, the bees in the boxes to make the wax so that they can store the honey. And that's always the problem that most people find. Wax is always the premium. It's the thing that you wait on, and that time period for bees to make wax very small due to the fact they only make it when nectar is coming in. So that's generally early in the spring. So that window is very short. So for that reason, that the time frame of bees to produce wax, my logic is if I give them the wax already on the frames, that's less wax that they have to produce, and the honey that would go into wax production will then go into storing that honey. So it takes, what I've been told, 7 pounds of honey to make 1 pound of wax. So in my logic, by putting the resource already there where the bees just have to work it and move it around, it just saves them a lot of time and energy. And really the important part there is time, because again, this window of making honey is very, very short, very short. So I give them the wax for them to build out so that they can draw that comb out, and they will draw it out incredibly fast when you give them that extra wax. And once that comb is drawn out, it all coincides with how that nectar is flowing. When the nectar is flowing good, those bees can just get out there, come back in, and start storing it. They don't have to use the energy of getting the nectar, consuming it, and then making the wax. They can just get it, transfer it back into the hive, and put it into the cells that they've already drawn out. So I want to help the bees as much as possible because I want to get as much honey as I can. For the last 2 weeks, Charlie and we have been going through all of these boxes, getting these boxes ready for our honey production. They're boxes that have got frames in it that don't have foundations. There's boxes in it that have frames in it that have the foundations need to be redone. And we have boxes that are just empty so that the frames that we bought from Acorn, that we can then put those in those boxes. So let me give you a shot of these boxes right here and show you what we got going on with them. The last time I showed pictures of the boxes in the peacock pen, these boxes that you see along here, they were arranged, they were turned not this way, but like that. And we had, gee whiz, we must have had maybe 150 of them in this area right here. All those have now been placed onto our hives as the second brood box. And the few boxes that we have right here, these are still boxes that have comb in them that could be used for brood boxes, or they could be just used as honey boxes, or some of these are actually going to be used as swarm traps, or when I catch a swarm, to put them in here because it's all old comb in these. And so that's why these boxes are still
laid up exposed to the daylight because I don't want the wax moth to get up inside of these things, because all of them had brood in them at one time. So that's what these few boxes are right here. Now the boxes on this side, these are all boxes with frames in them with foundation, but this foundation is from last year or the year before, and these are all going to be popped out of here and re-dipped, all of these foundations. So however many boxes this is right here, that's what has to be done with that stack. And this stack of boxes right here, these are boxes with just empty frames in them. And these will have, I also bought, I think 400 more just foundation frames that will need to be dipped. And then they will go into these boxes that have just empty frames. There's no foundation in them. And then this stack of boxes right here, and it's a lot of boxes. And those two piles right there, all of these are cleaned supers. They're just ready to go to have our frames, those 1,000 frames that we bought. If we need them, they're going to be going into these boxes. So Charlie and I have spent a lot of time getting all of these boxes ready to go. This, like I said, this took us, we worked on these boxes for almost 2 weeks. It's a lot of that background bee work that has to get done. That's not glamorous. Doesn't get a lot of publicity, but it's still work that has to get done. And Charlie and I, we've got this stuff done, and now we're ready for the next process. So it's been about an hour. Let's go ahead and check and see the progress of our melted wax, and we're going to start dipping some frames. Here's the setup I got to do this operation. And what we're doing is we're taking the frames, the foundations that are in this box, and these are just plastic foundations. We're going to be taking these, dipping it into our tank of hot wax and water, and because that water sits below the wax, when we take this frame, this foundation, and we dip it into that wax layer, it goes down into the wax layer, into the water layer, all the way to the edge, and I'll lift it up and I'll shake it off, and as it comes out, the wax will then adhere to the both sides of the foundation. It's really, really fast and simple. And once I've got the foundation covered with wax, I'll then set it on these sticks right here to cool for just a few minutes. I'll actually probably do about 40 or 50 of them, however many I can do. And then once they're done with that, my box with my empty frames are back there. I'll get them out of there and start putting the foundation into the frame. You can see the kettle is steaming, so let's take a look at that and see what that looks like, and we're going to get this operation going. Now let's take a look and see what our wax is doing. Yeah, I think it's ready. That's a regular witch's cauldron, huh? Oh my gosh. Now, I've turned the heat off, and that kettle will keep that heat and water hot enough to keep the wax in a liquid form easily for an hour. So it gives me a good hour of work, and by that time, gosh, I'm going to have dipped a lot of foundation. So let's go ahead and start the process, and you can see how I do it. Now I'm going to dip that first one and bring it over to the camera to show you what it will look like when it's done. Now I just have to use a little bit caution when I dip that in, not to get my fingers in that hot wax, because as you can see it's boiling, so that's 212 degrees. And now look at this. That is what I call coated with wax. So I only got, I don't know, let's do 400 of them today. We'll see how long it takes. Now how about that? 34 frames dipped
in under 8 minutes. That is super fast. These first 3, I didn't dip them really good, but all the other ones, they're very evenly coated. Really happy. So let's go ahead and pop these things into the frames. And then once we get a box filled, we just throw it into the trailer. Now this part is really simple. Just a matter of getting our foundation, placing it in the groove underneath it, bending it frame, getting it to lock into place. And there you have it. Now I only have what, maybe about 40 more boxes of these to do today. Now I know y'all are thinking, well, Mr. Ed, that's just fine. Well, I don't happen to have a 30-gallon kettle to do my dipping of my frames in. And you know what? I didn't have one either at the beginning. For the many, many years, I used a crock pot, and I would melt several pounds of wax in the crock pot, and I would use a 4-inch foam roller and spread it on the foundation. I'll also include that link to the video. It's several years old, but I did used to do it that way. I'll include that link to that video in the description as well. And when I was using that method, I could do 30 frames from a single mix in the crock pot. And that in the crock pot I didn't have water in it. It was just melted the wax, and then I would just roll the wax right onto the foundation that way. So it works. It really works well. It takes a lot longer to do it, but when you have the numbers of boxes that I want to do, this method right here for me works ideally. So that's all I got for you in this video. Thanks for watching. Keep on watching. I'll be making more. God bless. Mr. Ed, I'm out of here. Until next video.